Amy Schumer says she's no joke thief.
I did not steal any jokes, and I wouldn't.
She was untouchable, the biggest female comedian in the world, selling out arenas, headlining blockbuster movies, signing multi-million-dollar deals. Amy Schumer was everywhere, and for a moment it seemed like nothing could stop her rise to the top. But then something happened. The cracks started to show, the controversies piled up, and the very audience that lifted her to stardom turned their backs. What you're about to hear isn't just about a comedian who lost her way. It's about ego, hypocrisy, and a pattern of behavior so consistent that it destroyed everything she built. And here's what nobody's talking about. This entire downfall could have been prevented if Amy had just learned one simple thing: how to take accountability. But you need to stay until the very end, because what finally brought her down wasn't just one scandal. It was years of refusing to listen, deflecting criticism, and betraying the values she claimed to champion. This is the self-destruction of Amy Schumer.
Comedian Amy Schumer isn't laughing this morning over those accusations that she stole jokes. Now, the Trainwreck star is strongly denying the charges, and ABC's David Wright has the story.
There's this skit from Schumer's Comedy Central show about a new diet and exercise plan.
Then, before you can say slap chef, they knock it out of your stupid mouth.
Amy Schumer didn't start at the top. Like most comedians, she paid her dues. She began as a theater actor but shifted to stand-up comedy by 2004, performing regularly across New York's brutal comedy circuit. Her first real break came in 2007 on a show called Last Comic Standing, basically American Idol for comedians. She made it to the finals, finishing 4th. Not bad for a relative unknown. Even though she didn't win, her sharp delivery and confidence caught people's attention. She started getting spots on Comedy Central, making guest appearances on talk shows, even landing a minor role on HBO's Girls. But her real breakout moment? September 2011. The Comedy Central roast of Charlie Sheen. Amy was still relatively unknown at the time, but her set completely stole the show. Dark, fearless, unapologetically brutal. The kind of comedy that makes you uncomfortable, but you can't stop laughing. That performance racked up over 10 million views on YouTube and launched her into the mainstream.
You know the phrase I stole about explaining jokes.
Amy Schumer stole one of my jokes this week. I'm upset about it.
Amy?
I had parallel thinking with a guy, first of all. Amy Schumer stole my joke. I had a joke about sleeping like a swastika, which we did on this podcast, and it killed.
She dropped her debut stand-up album that same year, followed by a Comedy Central special in 2012. The momentum was building fast. Then came her own show. Inside Amy Schumer premiered in 2013 and became an instant hit. 80% fresh on Rotten Tomatoes, 7 out of 10 on IMDb. Critics loved it, audiences loved it. Her bold, unfiltered style tackled taboo topics, sexism, body image, gender roles, with a confidence that set her apart. She became more than just a comedian. She became a feminist icon, a voice for women in comedy, someone who wasn't afraid to push boundaries and challenge the status quo. By 2015, Amy Schumer had reached the absolute peak. She wrote and starred in Trainwreck, which became a massive box office hit. She was officially the highest paid female comedian in the world. Magazine covers, award nominations, sold-out tours. She had everything. She was on top of the world, beloved by millions, respected by her peers. But here's where the story takes a dark turn. Because that same year, at the height of her fame, the first warning signs appeared. And what came next would expose a side of Amy that her fans had never seen before.
Is it a tribute or a joke? That's the question being asked about Amy Schumer and Goldie Hawn's parody of Beyonce's monster hit song, Formation.
I got hot sauce in my bag, swag. I got hot sauce in my bag, swag.
The first major crack appeared in 2015 when The Guardian published an article celebrating Amy's success but also pointing out something deeply uncomfortable: her jokes about race, calling Latino women crazy, making crude generalizations about Latino men as sex offenders. The article argued that these jokes contradicted the progressive feminist image she'd built her entire career on. For someone who positioned herself as socially conscious and aware, Amy had what the article called a shockingly large blind spot around race. Now, this could have been a learning moment, a chance to acknowledge the criticism, show some humility, apologize, and move forward with growth. But that's not what Amy did. Instead, she went on the attack. She posted a tweet basically saying, "I'm a comic. Playing with race is what makes it fun. You can call it racist or lazy, but you're wrong. It's a joke and it's funny. I know because people laugh at it." That response shocked a lot of people. There was no reflection, no accountability, just defensiveness and dismissal.
Started some joke thief fight. No one has any idea what the fuck you're saying.
All Right Guys is when I defended Amy.
Right.
Amy, and I had people like lecture, and I'm like, don't presume to tell me shit. But they're outraged. But the same as the social jihadis, they all think they can. The same reason I became a comic. I could do that.
But fortunately for Amy, the controversy faded relatively quickly. Her career was still riding high. She was still selling out shows. The criticism seemed like a minor bump in the road, until January of 2016, when something happened that Amy couldn't deflect away from. An accusation that would stick. An accusation backed up by video evidence. And this one would permanently stain her reputation. If you want to understand how a comedian at the top of the world managed to burn it all down through pure ego and hypocrisy, you need to subscribe right now. Hit that notification bell, because what's coming next exposes a pattern of behavior that Amy couldn't hide forever. The evidence is damning. The lies are about to unravel. Don't miss it. Subscribe now. January 19th, 2016. Comedian Wendy Liebman accused Amy of stealing one of her jokes. She posted on social media, "Between Amy Schumer doing one of my best jokes on her HBO special and this meme, I'm done with social media." The joke? Both versions involve the punchline about liking when the guy pays for sex on a first date.
Accusations are flying online. Listen to this joke from Schumer's HBO special last year.
Like, I'm very old school. I think the guy should always pay on the first date for sex.
Now listen to comedian Wendy Liebman from a 1995 routine.
Maybe I'm old-fashioned, but I like it when the guy pays for.
When you heard them side by side, they were nearly identical. Fans initially defended Amy, calling it coincidence, parallel thinking, just two comedians arriving at the same premise independently. But then the floodgates opened. More accusations came. Comedian Kathleen Madigan also called her out, implying Amy had stolen material from her as well. And then someone created a video compilation showing side-by-side comparisons of Amy's material next to jokes from other comedians. There was a joke about Oprah and weight loss that seemed lifted almost word for word from comedian Tammy Pescatelli. There were relationship premises that closely mirrored work by Patrice O'Neal. When you watched them back to back, these weren't vague similarities or coincidences. They were nearly identical in structure, premise, and punchline.
So I'm out of town, I'm trying to enjoy some coffee, and then all of a sudden I see this vat of mayonnaise come up on my timeline saying that she endorsed and voted for Cuomo. Are you serious right now? People were sharing that this was on her Instagram story.
The backlash exploded across social media. The video went viral. Thousands of comments poured in calling Amy a thief, a fraud, a hypocrite, and Amy had to respond. She appeared on Jim Norton's show to defend herself, and what she said made everything so much worse. She claimed she'd never seen the work of the comedian she was accused of copying, never watched Kathleen Madigan's specials, never heard these jokes before, just pure coincidence, she insisted. And then, this is where it got really bad. She suggested that maybe these female comedians were just jealous of her success. Maybe they pictured different lives for themselves. Maybe seeing someone else succeed was just too hard for them to handle. That response was absolutely disastrous. Even if Amy had outright admitted to stealing, it would have been less damaging than what she said. Accusing other women of jealousy while positioning herself as a feminist champion? The hypocrisy was glaring. The arrogance was shocking. Comedian Tammy Pescatelli called her out directly, saying, "What's amazing to me is that she claims to be a feminist and yet only steals from other female comedians. If we call her on it, we're jealous or career shamed. We want you to do well. Just do it with your own material." The video evidence was crystal clear. The defensive tone made everything worse, and Amy's once untouchable reputation took permanent damage. The feminist hero image was crumbling, and people started to wonder, what else has she been hiding? As the public turned more critical eyes on Amy, people began digging through her past material. Old interviews, old speeches, old performances, and what they uncovered was deeply disturbing. Something that would reveal the true extent of Amy's hypocrisy. Something that made her public image as a champion of women's rights look like a complete lie. Back in 2014, Amy gave a speech at the Glory Awards and Gala where she told what she framed as an empowering personal story. She described an intimate encounter with a guy named Matt, emphasizing repeatedly how intoxicated he was throughout the entire experience. His face was distorted. His eyes couldn't focus on her. He was trying to see her from the side. He was, in her own words, effing wasted. She described the encounter in graphic detail as part of what she positioned as a story about finding confidence and self-esteem. At the time, the audience laughed. It was framed as comedy, as an awkward but funny hookup story. But when people revisited that speech years later, especially in the context of the Me Too movement,
Compare that to Kathleen Madigan's stand-up routine.
You have enough money to pay a man to stand there and literally slap out of your hand before you put it in your mouth.
Schumer is defending herself online and on the airwaves on the Jim Norton podcast.
I'm being accused of stealing jokes.
they saw it in a completely different light. Many pointed out that the man she described was clearly too drunk to give consent. What Amy portrayed as an empowering hookup story sounded like something far more serious, something that, if the genders were reversed, would be called exactly what it was. Comments flooded in. He was in no position to consent and was clearly impaired. She took advantage of a man who was drunk. Does she not see a problem with that? Here's what made it absolutely inexcusable. Amy had been one of the most vocal supporters of the Me Too movement. She'd publicly condemned sexual misconduct. She'd positioned herself as an advocate for survivors. So to hear her casually joke about a situation that involved someone too intoxicated to consent felt not just hypocritical, it felt disgusting. She'd built her brand on calling out bad behavior while openly admitting to that exact behavior herself. But the pattern of hypocrisy didn't stop there. In fact, it was woven throughout her entire career, becoming impossible to ignore, and the next controversy would perfectly encapsulate everything wrong with Amy's approach to criticism. When Glamour magazine featured Amy on the cover of a plus-size issue alongside women like Ashley Graham, Melissa McCarthy, and Adele, Amy was publicly furious. She complained loudly that she wasn't plus-size, that she wore a size 6 or 8, and that being included in that issue didn't feel right to her. She even suggested it could send a negative message to young girls. But here's the massive contradiction that everyone immediately noticed. If there's nothing wrong with being plus-size, if all bodies are beautiful like she'd always claimed, then why would being associated with plus-size women be harmful to anyone? Ashley Graham herself called out the double standard, saying, "Amy talks about being a big girl in the industry. You thrive on being a big girl, but when you're grouped in with us, you're not happy about it." That felt like a double standard to me. Amy's response? She said she didn't group herself with Ashley because Ashley is unbelievably beautiful, as if that explained anything, as if that wasn't even more problematic. Once again, she dodged real accountability.
Amy Schumer is currently getting roasted, and Amy Schumer is sharing campus reform articles. Wow. Well, look, I'll take it. I will.
This became the unmistakable pattern. Every single time Amy was called out for something, instead of reflecting or owning her contradictions, she deflected. She blamed others. She protected her image at all costs. She protected her massive ego. And that pattern was about to be put on full display in front of hundreds of people at a live show. What happened next would show the world exactly who Amy Schumer really was. October of 2016. Just weeks before the presidential election, Amy was performing stand-up at a show in Tampa, Florida, and things took an unexpected turn that would send hundreds of people walking out the door. In the middle of her comedy set, Amy stopped the show to single out an audience member who supported Donald Trump. She mocked him in front of the entire crowd. The audience immediately started booing. You could feel the tension in the room. Instead of reading the room and moving on like any professional comedian would, Amy doubled down. She launched into a long political rant about why she supported Hillary Clinton and why Trump supporters were wrong. The crowd got angrier, the booing got louder, and by the end of the night, over 200 people had walked out. Many posted their frustration online afterward. "We came to laugh, not talk politics. You ruined my night. I spent $300 for a comedy show, and you went on a disrespectful political rant." Now, Amy had always been political in her comedy. That wasn't new, but personally attacking a paying customer during a live show, that crossed a major line. It highlighted her complete inability to handle any disagreement without lashing out. Instead of having the emotional intelligence to understand opposing viewpoints, or at least respect that people paid money to see comedy, she responded with personal attacks and condescension. She cared more about being right, about protecting her ego, than connecting with her audience, and that audience was starting to disappear. But Amy's career was about to face its biggest test yet, a $13 million Netflix special that was supposed to be her comeback, her redemption, her chance to prove she was still the best. Instead, it became the nail in the coffin.
Slap out of your hand before you put it in your mouth.
Compare that to this skit from Schumer's Comedy Central show, Inside Amy Schumer.
Slap Chef, what's that?
It's a new weight loss program that takes decision-making out of the equation.
How does it work?
Slap shaft. Sandwiches. Slap shaft.
This is where everything falls apart. If you want to see how ego and denial can completely destroy a multi-million-dollar career, you need to hit that like button and subscribe right now. What happens next is a masterclass in self-sabotage. The special that was supposed to save Amy's career instead became one of the most hated comedy specials in Netflix history, and her response to the backlash? It made everything 10 times worse. Don't miss what comes next. Subscribe now. March of 2017, the Leather special dropped on Netflix. Amy reportedly signed a $13 million deal, making her one of the highest paid comedians on Netflix at that time. The expectations were massive. This was her chance to reset everything, to move past all the controversies, the joke stealing, the racial insensitivity, the hypocrisy, and remind everyone why she became famous in the first place. Fans expected something bold, fresh, and funny. What they got was a disaster. When the special released, it was immediately flooded with thousands of one-star reviews on IMDb. People weren't just disappointed, they were angry. The material was stale, recycled jokes about her body and sex life that they'd heard 100 times before. There was no growth, no evolution, no acknowledgement of anything that had happened. And to make matters worse, people spotted more jokes that seemed suspiciously similar to material from other comedians. The joke-stealing accusations resurfaced immediately. So how did Amy respond to this criticism? Did she take a moment to reflect? Did she acknowledge that maybe the special wasn't her best work? Did she show even a hint of humility? Not even close. Amy went on the attack. She claimed that alt-right trolls and organized haters were the sole reason for the negative reception. She posted, "Anyone who reported that viewers aren't happy with my special, it would have been cool if you did a moment of research before posting. The alt-right organized trolls attack everything I do." But here's the problem with that excuse. Anyone who actually watched the special could see the truth. The backlash wasn't just from political trolls, it was from regular fans who expected better. It was from comedy lovers who could see the material was weak. It was from people who had supported her for years and felt let down. Amy refused to accept any of that. She couldn't admit that maybe, just maybe, the special wasn't good. Once again, it was everyone else's fault, never hers.
And I wanted to come and talk to you about it and clear my name because I would never, ever do that, and I never have.
The pattern was now undeniable to everyone watching. Amy Schumer could not accept failure. She could not take criticism. She was stuck in an endless cycle of ego and denial. And by turning her back on the very audience that once supported her, she was tearing down the foundation of her own career brick by brick. But somehow, it was about to get even worse. A year later, in 2018, Amy released the film I Feel Pretty. The premise followed a woman who hits her head during a cycling class and suddenly sees herself as stunningly beautiful, which gives her confidence. What was intended to be an empowering comedy about self-confidence and body image backfired spectacularly. Critics and audiences felt the film sent the exact opposite message, that confidence could only come through delusion, that you literally needed a head injury to feel good about yourself. One baffled viewer asked, "Did Amy Schumer really think a movie about a woman needing a blow to the head to feel confident in her body would uplift people?" The movie was critically slammed, with some calling it the worst film of the year. When Amy was asked about the backlash, she reached into her tried and true Deflection playbook once again. "I don't feel the pressure, and whatever they're expecting, it's not my responsibility, so I don't worry about it. Some people projected what they felt onto it. Not my responsibility, not my problem, not my fault. It was the same excuse every single time." At this point, the pattern was crystal clear to everyone. Amy couldn't accept failure, she couldn't learn from mistakes, she couldn't grow, and by consistently turning her back on legitimate criticism, she destroyed any goodwill she had left with audiences. But while every controversy up to this point had damaged her reputation, what came next would expose her most disturbing side yet, and it would prove that all of her progressive values, all of her feminist ideals, all of her claims about standing up for marginalized people, it was all a facade. October of 2023, conflict erupted between Israel and Palestine, and Amy immediately took to social media to declare her support for Israel. Now, having political opinions isn't the issue was how she expressed those opinions and what she was willing to post to support her position. Amy shared content depicting pro-Palestinian protesters with fabricated offensive slogans, posts with blatantly Islamophobic undertones, content that spread misinformation and dehumanized an entire group of people. The backlash was immediate and fierce. Comments flooded in calling her racist, disgusting, harmful. Amy Schumer is absolutely pathetic. She's going full-blown racist. She needs to be canceled. How incredibly racist this is. Disgusting. And as a Muslim myself, I am hurt. Over the following weeks, Amy continued posting content that many viewed as anti-Palestinian propaganda, spreading misinformation and contributing to hatred. When actor and YouTuber Asia Jackson called her out publicly, saying it was crazy how some celebrities had to carefully word their statements while Amy could post inflammatory content and still keep her career, Amy didn't take it well at all. She directly messaged Jackson, accusing her of anti-Semitism and continuing to push her narrative. People were outraged. This blonde, blue-eyed millionaire just told a black Filipina to imagine feeling unsafe. Weaponizing anti-Semitism is vulgar. The reason we hate you, Amy, has nothing to do with you being Jewish and everything to do with your bigotry. But Amy wasn't done yet. In what might be her most shameful moment, she shared a clip of Martin Luther King Jr. speaking about anti-Semitism, completely taking his words out of context to justify her stance. This immediately backfired when Dr. Bernice King, Martin Luther King's actual daughter, personally called her out for misrepresenting her father's words. Dr. King stated that her father believed militarism, racism, and poverty were interconnected evils, and she was certain he would have called for the bombing of Palestinians to cease. At this point, Amy's hypocrisy had come full circle. The same racial insensitivity that was first called out back in 2015 had evolved into blatant bigotry. What began as criticism of a few off-color jokes had snowballed into a pattern of arrogance, ignorance, and deep-seated prejudice that could no longer be ignored or dismissed. The progressive feminist persona she'd built her entire career on was exposed as a complete fraud. And that pattern, that refusal to listen, that inability to grow, that constant deflection of responsibility had finally destroyed everything she'd built. Her most recent film, Kinda Pregnant, was a complete box office failure. Whatever connection Amy once had with audiences was now completely gone. The sold-out arenas were empty. The magazine covers stopped coming. The multi-million-dollar deals dried up. She'd gone from the biggest female comedian in the world to one of the most controversial and disliked figures in entertainment. And it all happened because she refused to do one simple thing: take accountability. So what's the real lesson here? What can we learn from the complete collapse of Amy Schumer's career? It's this: Amy Schumer's downfall wasn't the result of bad luck. It wasn't cancel culture. It wasn't internet trolls or alt-right haters or jealous competitors. It was the inevitable outcome of someone who refused to listen. Someone who cared more about protecting a fake public image than growing from mistakes. Someone who built an entire brand on progressive values she had no intention of actually living by. Every single time Amy was called out for something, whether it was stealing jokes, making racially insensitive comments, contradicting her own values, or spreading hateful content, she had the same response: deflect, blame others, play the victim. Never once did she say I was wrong. Never once did she show genuine growth. Never once did she prioritize integrity over ego. And that's why her career collapsed. You can't build a lasting career on values you refuse to live by. You can't claim to support women while tearing down other female comedians and calling them jealous. You can't position yourself as progressive and socially conscious while making bigoted statements and spreading propaganda. And you can't expect your audience to stay loyal when you treat their legitimate criticism with contempt and dismissal. Amy Schumer had every opportunity to change course. After the joke-stealing scandal, she could have apologized and committed to doing better. After the racial insensitivity criticism, she could have listened and learned. After the plus-size controversy, she could have acknowledged her contradiction. After the terrible Netflix special, she could have taken the feedback seriously. But she didn't. At every single crossroads, she chose ego over growth, and that choice destroyed everything. The truth is simple and brutal. Talent isn't enough. Success isn't permanent, and if you build your career on a foundation of hypocrisy, eventually that foundation will crumble. Amy Schumer learned that lesson the hardest way possible. She went from selling out arenas to becoming a cautionary tale, from the highest paid female comedian to someone whose projects fail on arrival, from a feminist icon to someone called out by the daughter of Martin Luther King Jr. for spreading bigotry. And here's the saddest part: it didn't have to be this way. If Amy had learned to take criticism instead of deflecting it, if she'd chosen honesty over ego, if she'd shown genuine accountability even once, her story could have ended completely differently. She could still be at the top, she could still be respected, she could still have a loyal audience. But she made her choices, and those choices have consequences. This investigation into how pride and ego destroy careers is far from over. We'll be examining other public figures who made similar mistakes, celebrities who built empires on false personas, influencers who couldn't handle accountability, and public figures whose refusal to grow led to their downfall. The patterns are always the same, the lessons are always ignored, and the results are always devastating. If you want more deep dives into the hidden stories behind the headlines, the patterns of self-destruction that repeat across industries, and the truth about how careers are really built and destroyed, you need to subscribe right now. Hit that subscribe button, smash that like button, and turn on notifications so you never miss an upload, because the truth is out there, and we're committed to uncovering it, one story at a time, one pattern at a time, one downfall at a time. The next investigation drops soon, and you won't want to miss it. Thanks for watching.